Imposter syndrome is a thing. It is a pernicious psychological phenomenon. When you have imposter syndrome, you feel inadequate, like a fraud, undeserving of your position, like you don't belong in a job or a role that you really are already in. Imposter syndrome manifests itself in incessant worry that you'll be found out, that someone will suddenly realize that you are not as intelligent, qualified, or even as cool as they think you are. This project is not about researching imposter syndrome or even about telling you how to cure your own imposter syndrome. This project is real life testimonials. People from all over the world with different backgrounds and occupations, all who've experienced this same phenomenon. This project is not about solving the problem of imposter syndrome. It's about bringing to you an awareness that you're not alone. It's about showing all of us that there is hope to cope. In just a moment, you're going to meet Dr. Nancy Williams, and I just want you to know a little bit about her. Over the past 20 years, she has been a music educator and a freelance performer. She's also coached hundreds of young elite musicians. She's even led an internationally recognized community ensemble. She's performed with the Four Tops, the Temptations, the San Diego Ballet, and various symphony orchestras. But what Nancy told me is one of the highlights of her career was receiving a standing ovation at the Sydney Opera House. Thank you so much, Dr. Nancy, for your willingness to share your story. Hi, Nancy.
Hello.
How are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing good. Doing really well. Tell us about you.
So I am a musician and educator who recently became a culture coach and consultant a little over a year ago. Um, just because of the direction that my life took. And it was not so much of a big pivot because what I was doing when I was teaching and performing had to do with inspiring awareness and the type of things that I do through a cultural lens with my clients as a culture consultant and coach. And one of the ways that I got there was through dealing with my own imposter syndrome. And when I was, probably 8th grade, people talk about like their life goals and what they want to achieve. I realize in retrospect, I was not a normal child because what I wanted most when I was in 8th grade, what I wanted my life achievement to be was to be happy and wise.
Well, hey.
And I'm going to be 50 this year. And it has taken me this long to get there.
Yeah.
But I'm probably happiest than I've ever been. And my career absolutely did not necessarily go where I thought it was going to go. But I'm really proud of my ability to pivot and to realize my purpose in life and how to make that happen.
Yeah. So tell us about what you're doing now. What is your career?
Well, I still perform and teach, or at least I will when we can again in
When we do that
person.
again?
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. But it's on my own terms. I actually finished a doctorate in music performance a couple years ago, and partway through realized that I was not going to be able to move for a job because my husband's job situation had changed and his
Okay. Yeah.
employers were not going to allow him to move for me. And he was too close to retirement for us to really risk the amount of pension that he would lose. And so at
Sure.
that point, I really had to do a deep dive on how I could make an impact in the world and have a voice and feel valued. And so I took why I started my journey, which was as a band director and as a music teacher. I wanted to inspire others to have the awareness and empowerment that music had given me.
Mhm.
And so I still do that as a culture consultant and coach, um, to help leaders create cultures of joy and empowerment. It's just I'm using a different tool. I don't use
Yeah.
music anymore. Uh, so that's what I'm doing now. I have a slash career, I think they call it, and
A
several
slash career.
hats.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. But my
Yeah.
purpose and my meaning is all the same underneath.
Yeah. What would you say are your biggest accomplishments in life or in work?
I would say getting to where I am now, like being able to find a path to be both wise and happy, um,
Mhm.
and to find fulfillment in the face of adversity.
Very cool. What would let's kind of switch that question a little bit. What would others say about you? What would they say are your biggest accomplishments?
I well, I guess I know what others like have said about me that have
Sure.
shared it.
Yeah.
One of those is I make things happen and I get things done. And so through that I'm able to inspire people when I don't realize it.
Mhm.
Um, and so I'm able to engage audiences in a way that's meaningful
Mhm.
to them and that connects them in a way to their humanity and to what we all have in common.
Mhm. So what has been your experience with imposter syndrome?
It actually snuck up on me. Um, I was quite confident and secure in my abilities when I was younger, probably more than I should have been.
Mm. Mhm.
um, and then I had some health problems, and it derailed my career and affected my ability to follow through on things that I had said I would do. And so
Mhm.
that was really hard for me. And it affected my ability to perform well. And um, that really made my confidence nosedive and
Sure.
made me vulnerable, um, to ultimately what I came to understand is professional gaslighting.
Mm. Mhm.
And at some point, and this like took years really to get to this point of um, having kind of a disabled confidence and being too malleable to other people's opinions and comparing people in ways I'd never done before. And it really opened me up to this type of professional abuse, which
Mhm.
ultimately I have to say I'm grateful for because it pushed me to an edge that I don't know if I would have gotten there otherwise. Because I just reached this point of resistance where
Mhm.
something in me just would not allow myself to see myself in the light I'd been seeing myself in, and just would not allow myself to create devaluing situations for myself, um, and in ways that I hadn't even realized. It really was like a rather immediate reaction when it happened, like a light
Yeah.
bulb moment that completely changed. It was a remembering of myself. I remember using this
Yeah.
like, "Oh my god, I forgot who I was."
Yeah. Yep.
And,
So go ahead.
well, that started my quest for remembering who I was, and
Yeah.
how did I think, and how did I act, and why did I act that way, and, um, in creating u ultimately a new culture for myself, because that's what had allowed my confidence to erode and put me in that professional situation that was damaging, is that I had ultimately created this culture around myself, that
Mhm.
that was not supportive. That how I saw myself and how I saw myself in the world were my
Yes.
own construct.
Yes. Yep. So tell us about your first sort of encounter with imposter syndrome. Like, when was the first time you realized that that's what was happening?
Oh, I don't even know for sure because I didn't realize the terminology.
Yeah.
But the most disconcerting part for me was how much I was comparing myself to others because I had
Mhm.
never done that before. Um, and experiencing things like jealousy, that was new to me, and I really did not like that. I really thought that was a really base emotion that um, it was.
Yeah, I guess let's move into that. Like, what does it feel like when you're having sort of when you're in an episode, for lack of a better word, of imposter syndrome?
Well, I think like the jealousy and the feelings that come with it, those feelings of not being good enough, feelings of
Mhm.
being less than, feelings of not mattering, feelings of self-doubt. I think those are all indicators for the main problem, which is going on in your head.
Yeah.
So what
Yeah.
I hate is when I catch myself thinking, "Oh, this person that I'm talking to right now, they think I'm someone important. Like they don't
Uh-huh.
know. They don't realize that I'm being a fraud."
Mhm.
Like that to me, when I caught that, that was really that was a reckoning. Like that was hard
Yeah.
to embrace that.
Do you still struggle with imposter syndrome?
And I really like through going at it full bore, like, in committing
Mhm.
myself to getting over it. I really am at an entirely different place, but just like everything, like, every once in a while, it'll creep up, and
Yeah.
I've got things that I have to manage it now, and I recognize it now, and so it doesn't dominate my thoughts or my life.
Yeah. Yeah. So can you tell us about the most recent time that you felt imposter syndrome?
Uh, yeah, I think it was about a month ago on a
Okay.
Zoom call, um, talking about a potential upcoming speaking engagement.
Yeah.
That's a really funny word to mess up on,
It
isn't
is.
it?
It is.
Um, and I caught myself, thinking, "Oh, he's this person has realized that I'm not all that I say I am, and they're not gonna follow through."
And did that happen?
No,
Did they follow through?
I actually ended up, um, convincing them to follow through.
Yeah, they
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
So that thought in your head that you weren't good enough was obviously garbage.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. But at the time, it feels so real and, uh, and heavy to have that feeling.
And
So you mentioned. Oh, go ahead.
I love that you called it garbage because,
It's
I
yeah.
mean, you have to smell it, you have to I mean,
Yep.
you have to realize it, recognize it, and then you have to take it out.
You gotta get it out of here.
You gotta get rid of
Exactly.
it, yeah.
So you mentioned that you have found ways to deal with it. So how do you cope when you have moments like on that call? Like, what techniques have you sort of put into practice? What do you do that makes it better for you?
Um, well, to backtrack a little bit before I answer that
Oh,
question,
sure.
like,
Sure.
when it was, like, an overwhelming problem for me, I devised a lot of different steps and to basically overhaul my culture. That I into something that where I loved who I was and how I thought of myself in the world. And that
Mhm.
did not take a short amount of time. Like that took a lot of work, and I cataloged that and actually created a program that I help my clients with that have that same problem. But now when I catch it coming up, to answer your question, my go-tos for me, and these can be different for everyone, but for me, what really helps the most is meditation
Mm,
and reconnecting myself with myself and my inherent self-worth.
yeah. It's something we have to maintenance,
Mhm.
our self-worth. And I think there are people out there that appear to have less maintenance than others. I don't know if they really do or if they're just really good at hiding it. But there are people out there that seem to be just very comfortable in their own skin. And there's others like you and me that have to really work at that, and have to continue to maintain it. And both are okay. I want to make sure I say that to anybody who's listening or watching. Like, it's okay if you have to maintain it. It's okay if you have less maintenance to do. But both are susceptible to having imposter syndrome at one point or another. But yeah, I like what you're saying, really reconnecting with that. What are some ways that you do that, that you sort of reconnect? You said you meditate.
I do.
Um, how do you remind yourself of who you are?
Um, for me, meditation is a really personal thing. Like, I don't use guided meditations.
Hmm.
I don't use any distractions. And um, it's like breathing through my heart. And that's how I really addressed the damage that the gaslighting had done.
Hmm.
And I think it was because I had been that person who didn't have to deal with it before. Like, I can connect with that inner person. Um, but also, I have a support system set up now, which is completely different before, when my culture that I created for myself was not serving my needs. Now it does. And so,
Uh-huh.
now I have a support system that I can check into when I need a boost. Now I have, along with my inner self, the the benefits of meditation regarding the way you can control your thoughts more.
Yeah.
And that's really what it came down to for me, is I was able to stop that negative self-talk in its tracks
Hmm.
with
Hmm.
meditation. And I've since used other tools that, because not all the same things work for everyone. Um, but journaling works sometimes better for some of my clients. So really looking at the habits of people who are successful and trying those on
Hmm.
and seeing what works for you.
What was one that you tried on and worked for you?
Well, definitely,
But
again, the meditation. Like,
yeah.
that was, and oh, I was really slow to get it, because I thought you had to be like perfect at meditating. You
Not
hear
so
of
much.
being able to empty your mind, right? Well, yeah, that actually was not how Buddha intended it, and it's not really the goal of meditation. The goal of meditation is to train your mind, and
Hmm.
being able to recognize those thoughts when they enter, and letting them leave,
Yep.
not dwelling on them, and building up that type of control. And so that was really the best tool for me. But it's always a brain dump. A journaling brain dump is always good
Hmm.
too. Building up a support system, empowering yourself,
Hmm.
and taking chances, and um, creating the life that you want, not the life that society tells you you should want.
Uh-huh.
And then you have a culture and a way of viewing yourself within the world that you can be really comfortable with. And when you're
Hmm.
really comfortable with that, that's where you give off the impression of being comfortable in your own skin. You don't have
Yeah.
anything to prove to anyone anymore, because you can give them the appreciation of them living in how they want to construct their world and their culture, and give yourself permission to not take that on.
Yeah. That's cool. What would you share with someone right now who's experiencing imposter syndrome?
I would say to give as much energy as you can to getting over it. Don't belittle it, um, because you deserve a better life than what you're allowing yourself to have.
I like that. I like that a lot. All right, I have one more question for you. Why did you want to be part of this imposter syndrome project? What sort of moved you to be part of it?
Because I want to be part of the solution. And I think if, just like anything, the more people hear about it from people who have overcome it, the more they realize that's an option for them. I
Mhm,
think some
mhm.
people, it's so common nowadays. I grew up without the internet and without social media. And I see that playing just really a negative part in the formation of imposter syndrome on a large scale in society for my younger counterparts. And I want them to know that they don't have to live like that. Like, it's not something that should be acceptable. Like burnout culture is almost that way, where it's like, oh, burnout's a badge of courage. I'm a really hard worker and I validate my existence that way. Well, no.
Right.
And I don't want imposter syndrome to become that, to be like, oh yeah, I've got imposter syndrome. Everyone does. It's just how the way the world is now. And it doesn't have to be. Like, you
Mhm.
are the master of your life. You get to be the protagonist in the movie about you.
Yeah. Well, I'm so glad that you raised your hand to be part of it and really appreciate what you've had to share. So, thank you, Nancy.
Thank you for having me. I'm so glad that you are bringing awareness to this.
If you like this series and you want to show support, go to buymeacoffee.com/ifyouaskbetty to learn more about how you can support this and future If You Ask Betty projects.